Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to our January MASL Message Live. I'm so excited to have you join us. I'm Jen Baldwin, your MASL president this year. And just like in the past previous months, we have a wonderful author who is willing to share with us. So I am going to stop sharing my screen so we can see Candy. And Candy, thank you so much for joining us. Missouri authors have loved you for years.
Oh, I
Um,
love Missouri. So,
I'm going to show my age because I remember reading boxes for Katja all the way back as a Show Me nominee.
well, hold on. If you're showing my age, you're showing mine too. So
Well,
that's great.
I
Oh, look, I can't help it. Julie's got adorableness on the
oh, she
screen.
does have
Oh,
been.
oh, he's
Oh, Julie, you've made my
yeah,
night.
me too. Oh, look. So,
Oh, he's
sorry, I
grown
didn't mean to
so
interrupt, but
big.
babies are sort of a thing for me. So, adorableness. Okay,
Yeah. So, Candy, thanks for joining us. If you want to
my
give us
pleasure.
a rundown of your journey as an author, we'll get started with your interview.
Okay, my journey. Gosh, it's been a long one because I've been at this now, what, 28 years. So it feels like a long, long journey. But I started because I actually had a son. My youngest son, Michael, was born with a heart defect. And I was working at it was then the Chicago Historical Society. Now it's the Chicago History Museum. And he couldn't go to daycare. He couldn't go to childcare. I couldn't leave him because if he got sick, from other children. He ended up in the hospital. He's really great now. But for a while, until he was old enough for his surgery, we could not do any childcare. And so I went home. I stayed home and I was really happy to do that. But, um, after a while, I kept thinking to myself, I love being here with them, but I really wish there was something more just for me that I could do. And I literally thought to myself, what can I do from home? And I thought, you know what? I think I can write. People have always told me I could write. I did a lot of in graduate school. And so I began writing short things and I wrote my life. American Baby, Pediatrics for Parents, Parenting Magazine. And I actually think of that now. When I go and talk to high schoolers, I tell them that's my apprenticeship. I didn't really know anything about publishing. I didn't know about deadlines or word counts or working with an editor, but I really learned that in that time that I did magazine pieces. And my impetus was we were so poor, right? We were fresh out of graduate school. We had a 3-year-old and a sick baby. My husband and I were so poor that this is what I was working for. Like I needed paint really badly because we had this horrible bathroom and it was this terrible green color. I wanted to like redo the front porch, that kind of stuff. So that was really what sort of motivated me. But what I realized was that I was learning a craft. And so eventually I wrote a piece and when I got done, I thought, wow, I don't think this is for adults. I actually think this is a children's piece of history. Sent it to the only magazine I knew for kids, which was Highlights. And Kent Brown, who was then the editor of Highlights at the time, actually called on the phone. He said, do you write for kids? And I said, I never even thought about it. And he said, I think maybe you should. And so that's really, really how I got started. I really backed into it. And I'm so excited and happy that I did. It's been a great life.
Well, and you have written a wide range, like picture books
Mhm.
to young adult nonfiction. Um, I hate to ask what your favorite part of writing could be because it goes through such a wide range. But and I don't want you to feel like you have to say your favorite book or whatever like that.
Yeah, my favorite book, I always tell kids this, so my favorite book is always the one I'm working on now.
John,
Really,
right,
truly, you always gets all your time, your attention, and you love hate it, right? Towards the
right.
end, you start to go, please, I need to work on something new. Um, do you know what I love? The best part, of my job, at least I'm here in my office, because I love going and meeting kids and I love meeting teachers and educators. I mean, that's like a whole part of the job no one even told me about when I started, and I think it's fabulous. But the best part of my job here in my office is the challenge, which explains all the different kinds of books and the different genres and the attempt, some better than others, to try different things. I really, really love that challenge. I love seeing if I can do it, trying it out, seeing what happens. So the challenge for me is sort of what keeps it fresh.
Oh, absolutely. Can you quickly book talk some of your most recent books? I will mention that our Enigma Girls was one of the Dogwood books
I know.
on the 2025 list, and our 2026 list is about to come out. I would be I would not be surprised if you see another book on that list because Is It Real came out this past year. Do you want to talk about some of your most recent books?
Sure. We can talk about Enigma Girls. Do you want me to talk about why I chose to write this story or
Sure.
I love those girls. And here's what happened. I was on vacation. Bletchley Park. And it wasn't really on my radar, but I have a friend from Ireland who used to live in London, and he said, "Oh, I really want to go." And I said, "Well, let's all just go. We'll take the train from London. It'll be great." And so we go to Bletchley Park, and I walked through it, and I'm like, "Huh, this is really fascinating." I kind of knew the history. It's a great place. I didn't get the sense that there were any young women there at all. Until I got into the visitor center on the way back at the end of the tour. And there was a wall, this big wall, where they had painted statistics, graphs, and tables so that we could see who worked at Bletchley, how many meals were served a day, that sort of thing. And I stood there and looked at those numbers, and I suddenly realized that by 1945, there were what, 9,000 people approximately working at Bletchley Park. 7,000 of them were women, were female.
Mhm.
And the majority of that 7,000 were between the ages of 14 and 19. And I remember literally, like, you could have just pushed me back on my heels because it's like, what? And then I had to turn to Eric and I said to him, can you do my math isn't my strong suit. So I'm like, do the math. Am I correct about this? And he said, yes. And then I was like, well, who were these girls? I began to look and I found them more and more. Luckily, Bletchley Park Trust actually did a lot of interviews with them. Not only did they transcribe interviews, but they did them on tape, that sort of thing, so you can listen to them. Um, and so I felt really the only word as I can say is I felt absolutely compelled to do it, to write it, that I felt like their history had been overlooked because their jobs were, they weren't
Mhm.
doing Alan Turing stuff. They weren't doing Tommy Flowers stuff, but they were there doing that grinding, constant, hard, dutiful work. They were there every day. They did it with a devotion. Even like Diana, she might be my favorite, Diana Payne, who ran the bombs. She hated the work. It was hard and dirty and boring, and she detested it. But she went every single day. And what historians were telling me was that they shortened the war by, 3 years. So think how many men that they actually saved. And I think to myself, I think we all know women. I think we are ourselves like this. We're always unsung, but kind of getting the work done. You know, nobody pays much attention because it might not be the flashiest jobs that we're doing, but they're important jobs all the less, particularly as we do them as a community, just like these young women did. And so I just really wanted to um, acknowledge the contribution that they had made to the world. And that was my reasoning for that book.
Well, and I'm going to just briefly let people know if they have not read this book, to also listen to it as an audiobook. I love the narrators of your audiobook and the
Oh,
back
do you?
of Enigma Girls. It was fantastic. And it takes you and puts you right there in Bletchley Park. So it
Oh,
was
that's so good.
fantastic.
I haven't listened and I have it, but I can't listen because I hear everything I would change.
Yep,
I
I
was
do.
like, why did I put and at the beginning of that sentence? Why did I add? Of course, I do that all the time, so I can't.
Right.
But I'm glad to know that it's a good tape or that's a good audio. Yeah.
Yes. Very good audio. Do you want to book talk any other more recent?
Oh, I could talk a little bit about Is It Real? But that's a series. So this week, I just turned in the second in the series, which is Bigfoot. I'll be honest, he was on my list, but he wasn't my second choice. I kind of wanted to do the Bermuda Triangle, but sometimes Scholastic tells you what they would prefer first. But Loch Ness was my very favorite because if there's a mystery, Loch Ness Monster, Nessie is my favorite. But the reason I wrote it, not so much that I wanted to delve into the history of the Loch Ness Monster, but what I find fascinating um, when I do research is that it's amazing to me how people will assume that things, they won't ask the right questions. They don't do a lot of critical thinking. And so, what I wanted to do with the entire series, and I think Nessie works particularly well for it, is I wanted to give you the history. So, the first part of the book, I know it's a real hybrid too. The first part of the book is straight up narrative nonfiction, it's all sourced in the back. It all comes from the historical record, everything that you read there. And that's in third person, past tense. The second part of the book is third person, but it's second. I mean, I'm sorry, it's second person, and it's present tense. So you, the reader, becomes an investigator, and they discover by using their handbook that they discover things like Occam's razor and how the difference between an opinion, a fact, assumption, right? Those sorts of things. And then they apply those skills to the question of, is it real? Based on these particular, there'll be other, can't cover the whole history of the Loch Ness Monster, but based on the early records, the early sightings, do you think those were real sightings or do you not? And then they investigate. And of course, I help them. So I bring in articles that were discovered later and other people's things about like in terms of Loch Ness Monster, the unusual characteristics of the lake itself, which could cause some of those reasons for what you think is a monster. But that's what that book is really about, using critical thinking, using asking good questions, discovering an answer, a reasonable answer, a conclusion based on the evidence. Typically, when I talk with kids about this book, they'll always say at the end, "Oh, I want more evidence." And I'm like, "That's right. We the good answer." And then the third part, of course, reverts back to third person narrative. But instead of it being a history, it's what's happening now. What are scholars and scientists saying about this myth or phenomenon or whatever we are exploring? What are they saying about it today? What are they saying now? So kids can sort of pit their conclusions against what current day scientists are saying about it.
That's
It's
fantastic.
super fun. Yeah.
Yes, loved the book, and it spoke to my scientist heart. I started
Oh,
my
good.
career as a science teacher, and just walking through the scientific experiments and the inquiry of that, but then also my librarian heart of, oh my goodness, we're really looking at the sources and looking at the primary sources, and is it real? The information literacy that is there. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
so
Even how to contact an expert, right?
yes,
Because
yes.
I want kids to contact experts. And so here's a good way to do that, you know?
That's
So
fantastic.
yeah,
And so
it
you
was a
said that
lot of
that's going
fun.
to be part of a series. Is there going to be one?
It is a series, yeah. So
Yeah.
the second one is coming, oh my gosh, I think it might be in the fall, but I'm not
Okay.
sure.
And
Yeah.
you said it was about
Oh, Bigfoot.
Bigfoot. Okay. And at one point,
Is it
will we do
real?
King
You
Kong?
tell me. Yeah.
Will we do King Kong? Will that be a
Doubt it.
gorilla like, like
Bigfoot is sort
King
of
gorilla?
gorilla. He's sort
Yeah.
of gorilla. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I,
Here we're all talking. I bet you guys didn't know we were going to talk about Bigfoot today, but
well,
yeah. Yeah, frankly, I'm really happy to have Tusk. So, yeah, I found that one harder than I had expected
Well,
because
my alma mater is a gorilla, and so when I
oh,
saw Becky
really?
Ballins was in, I had to make sure I typed in something with the gorilla. I did have a comment in the chat. I don't know if
Mhm.
you're able to see it or not.
Oh, do I
Patricia
have any
says, "I
questions?
can't wait to read it. I love Nessie."
Oh,
So that may be a very new book to a lot of different people. So I'm glad you were able to book talk that and that new series that's coming.
archival photographs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I like best is that Scholastic put it out both in hardback and paperback at the same time. And I really, really appreciate that because my readers do, you know.
Yes.
hmm
Yeah. So
It's,
do you want to talk a little bit about your research process and the use of primary sources? I
yeah,
know.
well, my research process is it's pretty organic. I know a lot of times I'll go to school, especially like middle school or high school, and the kids will be like, okay, so tell me your steps. And I'm thinking, because every book I learn to research that book, every book takes a different research path. But I'm going to say, and I always tell this to kids, that I have basically four paths that I follow, right? So the first path is primary sources. It's the first place that I go. So if I'm going to do a book about like the Enigma girls, the first thing I do is go online and I say, where are those primary sources? Who's holding those documents, those interviews, those who's got them, the photographs, who's got them in the case of I can't talk suddenly, Enigma Girls, it was really the Bletchley Park Trust and the World War II Museum in London. So now I've discovered where those are. Then I'll go to see if primary sources are digitized. On some of Bletchley's is, much of it is not. And then I'll look around to see if there's anybody I can interview that was actually there, a primary source. So I did have the pleasure of talking to Charlotte and oh my goodness, Gwen, almost forgot her
Yes.
name. Both have since passed. Um, and so there I'll start because I love primary sources, not necessarily because they're the absolute positive truth. We all know that, primary sources come from the horse's mouth. I always say perfect example of primary sources like P.T. Barnum's autobiography. He wrote four of them, and every single one of them was better than the previous one. So his life got better and better. His childhood got more and more exciting every time he wrote it. So, we always take them with a grain of salt, but you can check the historical records. You can check other primary sources, magazine articles, old magazine articles, newspaper articles, that sort of thing. So I do primary source material first, and that's I think where I find the most amazing tidbits that make the story really, really come alive. So Sarah, I found her autobiography and then interview that she had given buried in the archives. And when she talked about her teddy bear, it was just, it reminded me again how young they were. Or she told this amazing story about they were completely bored, nothing was happening, no one had broken any ciphers that day, and so there was no work for the girls to do. And they were bored. They decided they wanted to do some exercises. And so they actually laid on their backs and did bicycles in the air. But of course, they were all wearing skirts, which would have been fine, except Turing actually walked in and she goes, oh, he just saw a flash of underpants all across. And he literally walked in and wheeled and walked out. And, I absolutely loved that. Again, it reminded me how young they and still so girlish they all were.
Right.
Um, so those are the sorts of things that primary sources will those are the treasures that you get out of primary source material. Secondary sources, that's my second path, and I use those pretty sparingly. I do use them for things like the course of World War II, how many soldiers went, how many German soldiers marched into Poland, that sort of thing. I don't use a whole lot of like popular secondary sources online, like articles or websites. I tend to be real picky about them. So I tend to stick with university presses or university, scholarly papers, that sort of thing. So primary sources, that's my second go-to. My third one, experts. I know I've talked about this before with kids, but I use them myself because there is always somebody who has spent their entire career, their life, learning, studying, knowing things that I will never know. So once I get to a point where I think I know my subject pretty well, I have huge gaps. Right? I have huge holes that for whatever reason I can't find the answers to. And that's when I go talking, writing, usually emailing those experts. And usually I know who they are because I've done enough research that I've discovered the person that's writing again and again about Bletchley Park or, how the machine actually worked. These are the same people. The names keep coming up over and over again. So by the time I get to the place where I need an expert, I usually know who they are. Additionally, they're fantastic I can ask them to read the manuscript when it's done, and they've always, I've never had anybody say no. They always say yes. They're so thrilled that you're going to take their favorite topic and they're going to share it. You're going to share it with young people. That I want it to be as right as I can get it. They do too. And then my fourth path is travel. I will go if I can go. So Scotland, yeah, I went. It's a good excuse, right? With the family Romanov, I went to Russia. I actually went twice. I probably couldn't get there now. With the Enigma Girls, I did go back to Bletchley, so I have been there. I have a book this year called Death in the Jungle, and I only went as far as San Francisco. I did not go to Guyana. So, but if I can travel, I can. I have this real belief that landscapes speak and houses hold memories. And sometimes when I see it with my eyes and hear it with my ears, feel it with my skin, sort of, uh, I understand the material far better than I did if I had sat home and just read it online or at my desk. So there's my four paths. This is a really long answer for a pretty
Yeah,
short
no,
question.
that's okay. I want to know more about your travels, though. That just seems like I want to be an author just so I can travel. But what are some of your bucket list places that you've been able to go because of a book that
Oh
you're working
gosh. I Russia was always a bucket list ever since I was a kid. I remember I must have been public television. I saw this must have been a documentary about Lenin, that
with?
he's still like on display. His body is still like on display. And I remember as a kid saying to my mother, "What? That's so weird." And my mom going, "Yes, absolutely true." Of course, that was the Soviet Union then. And my mom's like, "Well, it is the Soviet Union." Communists, of course. But it was one of the things people laughed. I got to Moscow and everybody was like, "Really? You want to go? You want to go see?" They referred to him as Dead Lenin. It's like, I totally, totally do. And it's macabre, I know, but that was one of those things. But Russia was amazing. Moscow is like one of the most beautiful cities. I was stunned. And I loved St. Petersburg, and I actually got out to like Siberia and a few of those places, and that was astonishing. The book I'm working on right now, it's literally on my desk right now, is a book about rhino poaching, and I've been to South
Oh,
Africa 3 times. So I've even taken a wildlife forensics course and had with the joke is I sent home pictures and kept saying one of these things is not like the others. So here's this short little white American woman, and then there are these huge brawny South African park rangers, and there we are all together learning how to do fingerprinting and to assess a crime scene and secure a crime scene, and then take a look at animals that have been poached and determine how it had happened and the evidence. I mean, we actually went out to the field. So I took a week-long course, and then I went with an anti-poaching unit, walked across one of the national parks in Zululand, um, have been taking care of baby rhinos. Um,
oh,
they are so, my little sausages, I call them. I know how to make a perfect bottle of rhino milk for them, the right temperature, and depending on which baby rhino it is, how to have the correct amount of minerals and, that sort of thing put in it. I also can stop a rhino. So if I ever have one running down the street, I know how to stop a charging rhino. You just put your hand out and scratch behind one of their back legs, and they will actually stop. They love it so much. And then they'll do what I call the ballet leg. So they'll stick it out, like, and just sort of stop. And if you're not careful, they will want to lean against you, which you don't want a 2,000 pound rhino to lean against you. But they are extraordinary animals. They all have personalities. They communicate. They remember. Um, they're just extraordinary, and I worry about them. So that's my new book, and that will be done, I think this week or this month. So does Random House Hope. It's this month.
yeah. Well, that's exciting. Is there anything else on the horizon? I can't believe our time
Oh,
is almost up.
oh, I have the most wonderful book coming in the fall, at least I think. It's called The Forgotten War, and it's with Scholastic, but I think eighth grade is the perfect age for it. But it's actually my father's story. He fought in a Battle of Attu, which was actually fought in Alaska. So it's the only battle fought during World War II on American soil. The Japanese had actually invaded and occupied the island of Attu, and it took Americans about 18 months to even get there because they were busy doing other things. And the reason this is forgotten is that the US government didn't want to tell Americans that Japanese actually had occupied American land and was holding it. They felt that would be a real morale buster, right? Especially early in the war when things didn't go real well for the Americans, not at first, as we got running up to speed. So my dad got sent there as a 19-year-old. It's the first time he'd been out of his little town in Indiana, and he ends up in Alaska. And what I loved most about it was I actually did research this time on my own family history. And I loved doing it so much that for the first time, I don't usually do this with my nonfiction, but for the first time at the end of the book, there is for kids how to gather up your own family history,
Oh,
some
that's awesome.
suggestions. So, yeah, I really enjoy. And what's crazy is that I just got a first pass of it the other day, and I saw it for the first time in looking sort of book formish. It's still online. But it was so weird to see pictures of my father. And it was like, oh, that's so weird. But yeah, it was a really great project. So,
Wow, that sounds so interesting. It would definitely be something I want to read.
yeah.
That is fantastic. And I have decided that I'm going to just go ahead and retire so that I can become an author and
Fabulous.
all the different things, but I know I will not be nearly as successful as you.
Oh, I don't know about that, Jen. I think
Oh my goodness.
educators usually make really good writers for kids,
Yeah,
my
this,
experience.
I cannot believe our time is up. Is there
That
anybody
was
that
so
has any
fast.
questions? That was so fast. Anybody with questions that I can ask Candy before she signs off? It's
You
almost 6:30.
you can ask me anything. My age, my weight. Then we'll talk fiction instead of nonfiction. I'll give you my preferred answer instead of the real one.
What are some fun questions you've been asked by kids that surprised you?
Oh my gosh. I
What
had
do you got?
I know it. They've had so many funny questions. Well, I had most recently the one that I remember is I had a fourth grader um, say to me, "You're nosy. Did you know that? You're nosy." And I said, "I am nosy." I was talking about research and how I read Amelia Earhart's fifth grade diary, and he was just like, "What?" Yeah. Did you know you're nosy? Why are you so nosy? Oh, and I thought that might be the best question I ever had. I also had a kid ask me how tall my dad was. I'm not real sure why, but I'm guessing that somehow relates to something they had come across in their own life some point. So,
Well, and I love that you're going to do genealogy with kids because I feel like so many adults get into that, and by that point, a lot of their family history is has
it
passed.
goes
Uh,
away. But that's
yeah,
why I began this whole journey was my dad. Well, he would say, I'd say, what did you do? Tell me what you did in the war. And he goes, some of those are stories fathers don't tell their daughters. That
mhm,
was his reply to me. And so it was like, I never really knew until I actually went and did the research. So
right. Well, the only comment came from Cheryl, and Cheryl, I think you're biased. She's in my district, and she says I can't retire. So I think you're biased, but
yeah.
I do love what I do, and we are able to do what we do because we have such wonderful authors that we are able to match books with for our kids, and
Well, I do what I do because you guys are so fabulous at matching books with kids and,
so.
promoting that work. You guys are out there, you're doing the work. Really. I know that.
No,
I
you're
was
doing
like,
the work.
I know the truth.
Yeah,
So,
you're doing the work so that we and getting to do all the travel and all the bucket list items of scratching a rhino's bum and
yeah,
backpacking
y'all
so that
should
he
do,
can.
you should
Yeah,
all do that. It's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
But we're a
that's
good
and
partnership. That's what I'll say.
yes, that's
Mhm,
exactly what we are. So
mhm.
we thank you so much for joining us.
Oh,
I
thank you,
cannot
you
believe that
guys.
it's
This
already
was really
6:30.
fun. I
So
appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
thank
Have a good
you.
night.
Have a great night, and we
I
will
will.
see you soon, I'm
I
sure.
hope so. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, Candy. Since Candy has signed off, I'll go ahead and share our screen so we can continue the night. And I apologize, my 18-year-old dog is on my lap. So if you happen to hear him or her snoring, it's because she's on my lap. She wanted to be so close. So we have some announcements for our different committees and events that are coming up. The very first one, because we do it in alphabetical order, is community engagement. I just want to remind you that their newest session for their new library and workshop is advocacy, and it is starting January 26th. They meet from 6 to 7 on those evenings, and they're going to be having one more after this in March for future planning. You can register and be signed up for all of them as well. These are not recorded so that they can have new librarians that are willing to share their struggles and successes. And they do say that you do not have to be a new librarian to join. Like if you have questions about advocacy or future planning, you are welcome to join. They're not going to discriminate against how much you have been involved as a school librarian. So our next is curriculum, and they have the new program standards, virtual work sessions on January 29th. It will be programming and collaboration. And then in February, it will be collection and program advocacy. So you can join one or both of those work sessions and then share your successes and ask questions in terms of the new school library program standards. Legislative, I promise I'm about to be finished, is coming up. Legislative Advocacy Day is February 3rd in Jefferson City. This is a great time for you to meet with your legislators and to get an update on what is happening in legislation. Legislation session just started this past week, and they had a record number of bills pre-filed. We're at almost 2,000 bills at this point that will be going through one or both houses by the end or both chambers by the end of the year. So lots of different things that are coming up. Be watching. The legislative committee will also be sending out a monthly newsletter for bill tracking and all the different things. The Legislative Advocacy Day, I do want to mention MLA is also joining us that day, and they have a separate registration. If you register with MASL, there's a couple of things that you get that MLA is not offering their members. MASL will actually set up your appointments for you, and you will be in small groups, so you don't have to meet with your legislators on your own. And then the second thing is that MASL is also offering lunch that day. So please feel free to register with our event so that we can make sure that we get all the information for you before that day. The deadline to register is that last Monday in January, so January 26th, about a week before the event. So, and I know I went through those really fast. If you have questions, we can come back. Librarians for Inclusive Literacy. I thought Gabby was going to come on, and I have not seen her. Is she on?
I do not see Gabby, no.
Okay, I didn't see her when I flipped through. Just a reminder that February 5th is their next book club meeting, and they will be going over three books. Big is a picture book. Black Girl, You Are Atlas is more of a middle grade book, and then The Unboxing of a Black Girl is a young adult book. And you can be a participant in one or all three of those discussions. So they will all be happening online. Their next they have two book clubs left this year. The last one will actually be at spring conference. So you don't want to miss out on that. So make sure you register. I think I'm officially finished. Rebecca, are you ready to take over for reader selectors? Tomorrow's a big day.
Yes, I can do that. Thank you. So tomorrow, like Jen was saying, it is a big day. It is our reader selectors ratings due date. So anyone who has anybody reading those reader selectors, those 24 about titles for each award, those need to be turned in tomorrow so that we can get them figured out by the end of January. So you have them before your budgets close, hopefully by the end
Just
of
hoping this is going to be finished.
this year. So a couple things. This I know that the links are on the the presentation here, but I will tell you the easiest way I have found to find the links is to go to the MASL message that just came out January 6th. They're about 3/4 of the way down. You can click on whichever one is yours. Fortunately for Show Me and for Mark Twain, you get to do multiple students at one time. Unfortunately for Truman and Gateway, it's student by student or reader by reader if you have adult readers. And they don't have to have read all of them. So if you had one or here, I had a lot of kids who just read the Terrifying Tales of Vivian Vance. And so I can just do that each time individually, but it's a vote, so it's okay. And then finally, you can also find it on the awards page, but you have to do some clicking. So you have to go to voting and then reader selector, and then there's a click here button to get to that page. So it's a little more work, but it is doable. And if you have any questions, I'm sure you can send it to any of the membership or the award members. So thanks, Jen.
You're welcome. And Jill, thank you for putting a link directly into the chat for those that are needing to do that. That is a firm deadline, so make sure you have gotten your ratings in. Jill, remind me, is it a 5 o'clock deadline or is it 11:59? I'm going to say it's 11:59, but correct
It's
me if I'm wrong.
11:59.
Okay.
Yes. So we
And
will,
that's Central Time?
yes. So the forums will close at that time. I know lots of times we get requests for extensions based on snow days, that sort of thing. Fortunately, I don't think anyone's had snow days
I
in
know.
January yet. So hopefully that's not an issue for folks. But yeah, 11:59 tomorrow on Tuesday, January 13th.
Yes, so get those ratings in for both adults and students. Moving on to spring conference, I will turn it over to Sarah and Savannah and Hope. I saw all three of them on.
All right,
Yes, we are
registration.
super excited.
Sorry,
Go
do
ahead,
you want to take
Savannah. Go
over?
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay,
No, you can go.
registration is still open. We want you to hurry and get registered in January so you can get our super fun conference t-shirt that we've been working really hard on. That closes, or to get the conference t-shirt, you have to register by January 31st. So make sure to get that in.
And am I correct that registration fees do not go up after January 31st, like the last few days or last few years?
That is correct.
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
So these totals are set for those of you that have PD meetings that may not be meeting until where you can register ahead of time. So I've had that question asked a couple of times and want to make sure everybody
Yeah,
knows.
and those won't change at all. There's no early bird deadline this year, so even if you register on site, those rates will remain the same.
That's fantastic. Okay. Oh, I have not seen this slide. I'm so excited.
Mhm.
Yes, we have lots of great authors coming. So here's your first look at our authors that will be in attendance and with the author exclusive event for those that registered before September 30th. So be watching for more information about these people.
All right, if you go to this bit.ly website, it'll take you to the living, growing document with everything spring conference. And so as you peruse through it and as we share new information, it is going to go directly on to this site so that you have information right away. And also we will be sharing on the MASL message, instead of all of the big graphics for each individual piece, we are going to be just sharing updates that are happening to the site. So it'll link you to the sites and all of our wonderful announcements will be there.
This looks fantastic. Thanks, ladies, for making that.
Thanks, Sarah, for making that.
It's group effort.
Okay, and then don't forget to shout out your library community. We want to be able to feature all of our wonderful librarians across the state and show all the fun things that you're doing in your libraries and what's going on with everybody. So be sure to share pictures. It does not have to have you in it, but just know that it will be shared on the big screens. And so you need to make sure that it's any students that are in there are able to be photographed and shared out. So get those sent in so we can have lots of fun looking at all that we're all doing.
Vanna, I've been having trouble getting my pictures to upload to that, so I like created a separate folder and shared it with you guys. Will that work, or what do I need to do?
We did get that folder, and I believe we have it in place. Is that correct, ladies?
Yes. Savannah's shaking her head yes.
Yes.
Or Sarah's shaking her head yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for checking, Becky. Is there anything else you want to say about spring conference, or did we cover it? I didn't want to move on too fast.
I think we're okay.
Okay. Last for tonight, I want to make sure that we announce who our author is going to be for next month. I have worked really hard to try to get every Reader's Award and Reader's List. And so I was really looking hard for somebody to represent the Hawthorne and have been very excited because I read this series last fall. Reminded me of Junie B. Jones, but also had a STEM connection. So I am excited to say that Shifa Shaltagi Safadi will be joining us in February. So registration link will be coming out very shortly. So be watching for that. And make sure you come and join us on February 9th from 6 to 7, just like we do every other month. So excited to meet her. She has been very communicated a lot with us. I can't use that. I can't speak tonight. So I'm very excited that she's able to join us. And that will be our end of our MASL message. So I thank everybody for joining us tonight. If there aren't any other questions, I will let you go a little bit early tonight. Thank you so much for joining.